Hello, everybody. How are we all doing? Oh god, I should probably make the text on the chat log a different color, because you can't read that. Let me go see if I can fix that. Because I just realized it is very white. Hopefully that'll update on its own and I don't have to relaunch the widget, but we'll see in a second. Could somebody say something, please? So I can see if this updated or not. There we go. No, I just had to get the music going. Good evening, everybody. I'm a little bit on the nervous side for this stream because it's something I've been wanting to do on the channel on occasion, you know, when I get the world building bug, and some of you may, I swear the sensitivity on my V2 or my PNG tuber is way too, we're gonna turn that up a little bit. That's probably better. Maybe a little bit further down. Okay, we're gonna keep it here and hope that it's not too all over the place. Otherwise, I'm just gonna be sitting here kind of shaking all over the place. So some of you may remember back in our Twitch days that we ran a D&D game, or at least I DM'd a 10-session D&D game on the channel. Hana, Izumi, Kagami, Eagle, and Izumi's fiance Tux were all players in that game. Now when I started that game, I had a city, two villages, a very small town, which I think I ended up turning into like a roadside tavern small area, a forest, and a ruin. That was literally what I had. And that entire campaign took place in that small area. Over the course of, God, how long ago was that game? 4 or 5 years ago? I've been running games in this world in my offline Monday game and expanding the world. And I'm at the point where I wanted to, and this was actually something I got the bug for from a video by Icarus Games where he explained that before he started a campaign, oh, thank you, Moxie. Before he started a campaign, he made a player's guide for his players on the area that they would be playing in, leading them into general knowledge of the world and essentially what their characters would know going in. And I wanted to do the same for my players. There's a lot of countries and kingdoms and different important things in my world. I've got several religions in my world that cover and that my players know, maybe have heard in passing, but don't really know enough about. Kayla, you better be laying down. Sorry, the dog is antsy tonight. And I don't know, I've been working on this I started probably sometime last week, and I kind of wondered if you guys would enjoy sitting and chatting about world building and stuff with me. Mona and I do a show on her channel where we read D&D horror stories, and y'all know that I'm big into D&D and that I love to DM, and I've always really loved world building, so I thought this would be kind of a fun sit and chat and enjoy each other's company while I gush about my world. And I really love... No, the dog is just antsy because she's bored. She has something to chew on, but it's not what she wants to chew on, so she's mad at me. But the other stuff is a lot more expensive, and we can only get it once in a while, so she kind of has to deal. But I figure we'll go over what I have, and then you guys can, help me, or, just sit and chat with me while I work on the next portion of the story. So most of the art that's in the book is either placeholder until I can commission something, or has been pulled off of the internet. Like this first image here is actually an AI image that I kind of pulled off of Pinterest. I have very strong feelings about AI art and people making money off of it, but that is not this kind of stream, so we're not going to have that conversation. Actually, yes, atheism is there in the world. There are people that don't believe in the gods for several different reasons. I believe Hana's current character is an atheist. He studied the gods, but I don't really think he has any belief in them. Seth is a little on the interesting side in that his beliefs are being very much shaped by his current experiences. I don't want to give too much away about the current game because there are players in the chat. So anything that's not in the book that gives away future things for my game, I might not talk about while my players are here. Because Hana is in the chat, and I know Mona is in the chat. And at some point, I'm going to have Moxie guest into my game. And Eric, too, at some point, if I can get him in. So this next page is just kind of filler. It's adorable tapeworm. Hello, my dear. Welcome to the show. So this page is just kind of filler. I just put it there to kind of put some spacing between the cover and the next page, because I'm eventually going to put my map here. I have not even begun. Well, I have a sketch of the shape of the continents and where they're placed. I might actually do a stream where you guys can chill with me while I work on the map, but I haven't actually started working on it yet. I have another map for another world that I have vague ideas for, that I'm not working on right now because I want to finish the stuff for this world. But I did take some time to play around with learning how to use Incarnate, which is a map making website for D&D you can make. I am going to have a credits page as well. Haven't gotten there yet. There's a lot of stuff I still need to do. Right now I'm just trying to get the important information down. So the next page is my introduction. Tir na Nog is the name given to the planet that makes up our world. The origin of the name has many legends. Some believe the name came from outsiders who blessed Tir na Nog with many things and then left. Others believe the name was chosen by the Archon who created this world. This guidebook will provide an introduction to the customs and nations of Tir na Nog, introduce you to the people who live on this planet, and provide a primer on customs, faith, and folklore in the area. So, to give some backstory on this world, when I was very young, I was writing a novel. That novel never got past the first, 3 chapters. But the basic premise for the novel was that a bunch of real-world college kids, after some incident, get thrown into a fantasy world where they have to survive and find their way home. This world is the remnants of that book. I took everything that I had built in the novel for this world and I transferred it over to my game. And I still have references to that book in the game. The heroine of the book. Oh, it's YOLO. The little guy is YOLO. 'Cause I love him. But the queen of one of the kingdoms is actually the protagonist of that book. One of the characters that has had a lot to do with the party in various games, is also one of the members of the royal family of one of the kingdoms in the book. There's a lot of little subtle references to the book, but this is essentially what came out of that. So, the time and the wheel of the year. Those of you who know me know that I am Wiccan, and I did put a lot of essentially all of the Wiccan holidays in this world. I'm not very creative when it comes to holiday names, and I thought they fit. A day on Tir na Nog is made up of 24 60-minute hours. I'm not going to do timey-wimey bullshit with my players, and give days weird hours. I think in Exandria, Matt Mercer did that where a day is more than 24 hours. And I feel like that's just weird. That would feel weird to the players when I look at them and go, it is the 27th hour of the day. And yeah, I don't expect my players to keep track of time unless they ask me what time it is. Usually especially in our current game, which is a reskinned Strixhaven game, they can kind of tell the time of day by what class they're in or if it's lunch or not. In most settlements, the passage of time is marked on the hour by the ringing of a bell in the church or town hall. Many settlements also have one or more sundials, which can give citizens more accurate time measurements. My world is not very technologically advanced. Gunpowder has not been invented. There's not a lot of clockwork. That's very much a new thing. I'm leaving it open because there is an artificer in the current party who has expressed interest in being the one to invent gunpowder, so he and I are still kind of talking about it. Now, the week. Now, this was kind of fun. Now, initially, I had the days of the week named after the gods of one of the pantheons, and then I decided not to do that for the sheer fact that I feel like showing the calendar to my players, it would very much confuse them if the names of the names of the week didn't at least have the first letter of our real world names of the week. So I felt like that'd be too confusing to them. So while they have changed, they do have the same first letter. The Tir na Nog weekday is made up of 7 days. Each language has its own names for these days, but in common the names are Moon Day, Tower Day, Wine Day, Thunder Day, Fire Day, Star Day, and Sunday. It's enough to be different to feel fantasy-esque, but still enough of the same that it's not going to feel strange to the players. Oh, that's information that I have to change. Give me 1 second, because that was changed recently. Okay. I initially had done months with 30 to 31 days, and then when I was putting the image of the calendar together for this world, I realized that it would change every year, like our calendars do. And I didn't want to have to worry about that not matching up with the book. You know, if they're in their 4th year at the school, I don't like the idea of the calendar just looking the same as their first year if the days of the month are uneven. So now, the calendar that is used in Tir na Nog breaks the year into 12 months of 28 days. Giving indication, and then the names of the month give indication of where in the season they fall. I don't expect my players to keep track of what month it is. Especially right now, because they're in a pocket dimension where the weather is kept pretty tepid and pretty, like, comfortable for the students. But when they leave the world, you know, they're going to be able to mainly tell about where in the year they are based on the festivals and holidays around them and the weather. You know, in winter it's going to be snowy and cold in a lot of places. But essentially they'll be able to tell by the seasons rather than the name of the month. And then we get into the ages of the world. This is where the world history comes in. I can sit here for hours and give you all of these, like, this happened in the year 1242 PS. And we'll get into what PS stands for in my world eventually. And it comes down to me wanting to make it a little easier for my players and say, if they find an artifact, rather than telling them what year the artifact was made, I can look at them and go, this is from the age of blank, and they'll know relatively where in the history of the world that falls. You know, it's a vague idea of where in the timeline of the world that would be. So, the ages of the world. The passage of centuries and millennia on Tir na Nog is broken into ages. The following ages are presented from the most recent to the most distant. And before I get into the ages of the world, I just want to show my calendar. I actually made this yesterday. I was so proud of it. So the names of my months are fairly simple. Founding is the first month out of the year. It's when the year begins, so when the world was founded. Dawnlight, it would be our February. And then it goes into New Seed, which is when harvest would begin. Tempest, which is, you know, stormy, rainy season. Blossom Wind, Middle Tide, which is where, like, midsummer would be. Zenith is where you get into the hotter months of the year. Last Seed would be when the last of the planting would be done. And Harvest Yield is when the harvest would begin. Spirit's Veil would be our October. Twilight would be November. And then Snowfall would be the last year of the month when winter is beginning. And it gives a little tidbit on the seasons as to where the different seasons begin. And they're marked on the calendar with the little black circle. These are a little small in the internet browser, but they get bigger when you have the full PDF in front of you. I also have a list of the holidays and what months they're in. So we have Twelfth Night, which isn't so much a Wiccan holiday, but is a medieval holiday. Because in a lot of, in ancient time, I don't want to say ancient times, but like medieval Elizabethan era, Twelfth Night, Christmas would be celebrated for 12 days. And that's where Twelfth Night would come in, would be the last celebration of the Christmas season. So we have Twelfth Night, Imbolc, Ostara, Beltane. Now, I can get into long explanations of these holidays at some point, but they are Wiccan holidays, and I will give you a little bit of a joke about Beltane. Beltane is essentially the time of the year that we celebrate new life and fertility, and it is often joked about being the pagan sex holiday. Because a lot of witches will use that holiday to do sex rituals and cast spells while doing sex. And I'm so glad I'm not monetized. But yeah, that's the thing. I don't usually celebrate Beltane, at least not in that way. Yes. Okay, there's a little bit of a lag between the chat and me. I don't celebrate Beltane in that way. At least not usually. My husband is an atheist, so I don't ask him to participate in any rituals or spells for his comfort. I don't think he would object to sex magic, but for the sake of, respecting the fact that he is an atheist, I don't usually ask him to participate. We did Samhain together my first year up here, but other than that, I haven't really asked him to participate in rituals or spells. He is not Wiccan. He has not gone through a year and a day. So, getting back into the ages of the world, there is the Age of Peace. That should be the Age of... Right, I called it Enlightenment, and then I decided to change it. See, this is a good thing we're going through this, because now I'm seeing things that I have to fix. The Age of Peace began at the end of the Shattered War in 1 PS, post-secession. So there is, at some point in my history, there's a huge war between the humans that came over to the continent of Telethra and the elves that already... Shut up, Moxie! And the elves that already lived there. And it led to the humans gaining the eastern half of the country. Oh, Nessa's gonna be hiding from YOLO during Beltane. That's okay, there is a very happy Ketchi who will gladly make him happy. Oh. But the war lasted several years. There were demons involved, and it was a big to-do. And honestly, in my game, currently, they are on the brink of war again. But essentially, that war is how the Kingdom of Heedwile, which we'll get into the different nations, was founded. Humans came over from one of the other continents, fleeing a tyrannical frost giant, seeking peace, and it led to more war and more strife and lots of demon shit. It was in this age that the humans and elves found peace and the world turned to academic and adventuring pursuits. I cannot type, apparently. Now we get into the Age of Healing. The Age of Healing began at the end of the Mage Wars, when the world was left in tatters by those with arcane power. Many of those with magical prowess who remained sought to heal the world of its scars, and laws were put in place on every continent on the regulation and control of magic, and the nations as we know them today are formed. So yeah, the Mage Wars were a big thing. After we'll get into the Age of Magic, but it left the world scarred by intense, dangerous magic, which left portals where demons could come through, and the entire southern part of Telethra has been morphed and changed by this magic, and there are mutated creatures showing up. This could potentially be something that the players get involved in. I haven't really played around with that because they haven't gone to that part of the continent yet. They're currently in a pocket dimension that they got to in the northern part of the continent because they are currently attending a magic school. The Age of Magic. The Age of Magic is the name given to a time of great magical upheaval in Tir na Nog, after the fall of the Ecthelian Empire. So the Ecthelian Empire is essentially this world's Atlantis, in that it is this extremely technologically advanced society that decided they wanted to try to play God, and because they try to fashion themselves into divine creators, the gods grew jealous and smote them, and the entire Ecthelian Empire fell. When those with magical prowess fought one another for dominion over the other, it led to great tears between the material plane and other planes of existence, leaving the land scarred by magic. The Age of Enlightenment. The Age of Enlightenment was a time when the people of the Ecthelian Empire began to thrive. Their magical inventions and strange technology granted them a world in which they could study magic and create not only new inventions, but new life as well. So my players have already been introduced to the idea of the Icthelian Empire. There is a pirate crew. Well, they're technically privateers depending on where you are in the world, and where they are in the world. They are... The captain of the crew is very interested in Icthelian technology, and she specifically goes looking for it so that she can sell the pieces and make money. I believe Mona's character was given a piece of Icthelian technology from the captain as a thank you for a job that the party did for her. It was a donation to the museum that Mona wants to. Thank you, Tapeworm! I'm so happy with this world. I love it so much. And then we get into the Age of Separation. The Age of Separation is the name given to a time when the gods separated themselves from their divine creations. Whether by choice or by the will of the Archon, divine blessings were given indirectly through prayer, rather than bestowed in person, and mortals began to see themselves as separate from their divine creators. That's a big part of the lore for the Arconian gods, which are mostly revered by humans, gnomes, halflings. There are some elves that also follow this religion. It's mainly worshipped in the continent of Sneerheim and the kingdom of Heedwile. And there's this whole war between the gods, and the Archon, who's like the overgod, decided that if you guys can't play nice and you're going to continue to bring war to your creations, then we are going to separate and you no longer can walk among your people. Yeah, most people have general knowledge of the history, especially like immediate history. Most people know about, the big war between Heedwile and Avalon, and this is all basic information that everybody would have. And there are very few places in the world at this point that people can't read and write. And finally, we have the Age of the Divine. The gods shaped the world in their image, giving life and light to the land and oceans. Continents were formed and people began to roam. And then there's a nice little quote there, talking about the beginning of the beginning of the creation myth of the Arconian faith. At the start of things there was darkness, and in that darkness was the Archon. No one knows how long he existed before he created the first spark of light, but when he did, Tir na Nog was born. Now I have creation myths for almost every religion. There's 2 that I still have to write creation myths for. And that's mainly just because I only recently created the basis for those religions, and now I have to expand on those. Because I wanted to get at least the names of the gods in those religions down for my players, even if I don't have all the information. And the next thing we're going to get into is the races, the different types of people that exist in my world. Tir na Nog is home to dozens of ancestries and people groups. And now this is essentially what I will accept my players playing. The following ancestors are commonly found in at least one area of Tir na Nog. You may freely build a character with one of these ancestries. Now I have some homebrew ancestries in here whose names might sound familiar to Final Fantasy fans, especially if you play Final Fantasy XIV. Quite a few of my players play Final Fantasy XIV and enjoy the races from those games, and I have a book on that essentially converts all of the classes and the races from that game into D&D. And for the sake of this world, I've let my players use them. Han is actually currently playing one of the classes from that book. He's playing a Dark Knight. And a couple of the NPCs there's some Vieras, there's some Mikote, there's a couple Aura that attend the school that they're at. And I have worked them into my world. I didn't put the write-up for those races in this book because, don't tempt him, Tapeworm. But I didn't put the write-ups for those races in this book because I didn't create them. So if my players want to play that race or are interested in reading more on that race, I will give them the information on that race. Just because I didn't write it and I don't feel comfortable taking someone else's race right up and putting it in my book. Now we have the uncommon ancestries. The following ancestries can be found in certain areas of Tir na Nog, but often face some kind of difficulty elsewhere. Speak to your DM before creating a character. I cannot type, I am realizing. Before creating a character with one of these ancestries, so they can explain how you fit into the world. So we have your more uncommon races like the Aarakocra, the Aasimar, Genasi. I have Owlins in here. Those specifically came from the Strixhaven book. One of my players is currently playing an Owlin. She very, very much wanted to be an owl person, so I did not tell her that she couldn't. And then we get into the rare ancestries. All other ancestries are considered rare, and you will need to speak with your DM to get approved to play one of these characters and work with them to figure out how you fit into the world. I love homebrew, and my players will come to me with some really creative shit, and I will never tell them that they can't play something unless it's not balanced. And even then, I'll tell them, yes, but we may have to change things. Not an owl person. Essentially, as long as they bring the write-up of a race or a class to me beforehand and I can read it over and decide, this is maybe a little unbalanced. Hey, Tor! Maybe a little unbalanced, and we can fix it while we play. If it's extremely unbalanced, I'll say no. If it's extremely unbalanced, I will look at them and be like, there is no way this is working unless we write it ourselves. And speaking of writing races ourselves, I am insanely proud of this race. If you have played the Fire Emblem games, specifically Path of Radiance, Radiant Dawn, Awakening, or Fates, you will be familiar with the bestial transformative races, the Lagoos. I wrote an entire D&D race based on the Lagoos because I am obsessed. So, the Lagoos, the beast folk of Izumo, are as beautiful as they are mysterious. Believed to originate from the Feywild, how and when they came to the material plane has been lost to history. They spread throughout Taiyue. Taiyue is one of the continents of my world. But because of their bestial nature, many of the other races believed them to be related to yokai, and therefore dangerous. For fear of persecution, they fled to the neutral kingdom of Izumo, where they live life in their tribal villages in peace. Boo, Moxie, boo. Bestial ancestry. Outside of their bestial transformations, Lagoos take on a human-like appearance with a number of animal characteristics, usually in the form of animal ears and tails, while the rarer Manakete look elven in appearance. In their beast forms, Lagoos are barely distinguishable from the animals they take the shape of, aside from being slightly larger. Just like humans, their hair colors, eye colors, and skin tones vary, and they reach anywhere from 5 feet to just above 6 feet on average. Depending on their tribe, the various beast Lagoos can live up to 500 years, while bird Lagoos can live nearly 1,000 years. The Manakete, however, can live up to several thousands of years due to the draconic nature of their beast forms. I very much I've loved the characters that are this race in the Fire Emblem games. One of my favorite characters is the character that's actually in the book, Selkie. She is a kitsune in the game, and she is absolutely adorable and hilarious. I did realize there's a sub-race for this that I missed, that I'm I actually have to go in and add, which is the branded, which are like the half Lagoos. Yes, you can play as a Manakete. I am actually working on a side character for something of Mona's that is a Manakete. Centuries of persecution. Due to their ability to transform and the animalistic traits they carry in their day-to-day appearances, Lagoos are often distrusted by humans. This has led them to sticking to themselves and being rather untrusting of the other races of the world. While the playful Kitsune may see this as a chance to play tricks on those who stumble upon their forest villages, the Herons may outright attempt to kill intruders. However, once a Lagoo's friendship is won, they are a steadfast and fiercely loyal ally who seek to protect their friends as if they were a member of their tribe. And for curiosity's sake, the Lagoos live in secluded areas away from most civilizations, as they prefer to live in the natural world rather than the urban civilizations. Being part animal in nature, they obviously have strong ties to nature itself. They have strong familial ties and would never risk harming anyone from their own tribe. It is not common for members of the beast tribes to leave the safety of their society, but on occasion, a few are selected to act as a representative of their needs. Those that willingly choose to leave their society are much less common, and mostly do so out of curiosity of the outside world. Yeah, I made Lagoos fairly reclusive in my world. There are those that do leave and go off to adventure, namely the player characters who want to play this race. And I think I have one or two Lagoos currently at the academy where the players are currently at. But I had a lot of fun with this. Lagoos names. The Lagoos themselves do not have special naming conventions, and therefore take many of their names from the societies around them. The Kitsune may take on Hinamotan names. Hinamoto is one of the kingdoms in my world. But the Wolfskin may take their names from the noble warriors of Xiaolong, which is another kingdom in my world. It really just depends on personal preference and location. They also rarely take surnames, though they may adopt one they like from the people they meet for use in societies where that sort of thing is important. I would gladly let you play a Manakete. I need more playtests of this race. Though I will say that when it comes to magic as a Lagoos, you might want to go with the Kitsune. All of the races have their specialties, and the Manakete's big thing is their dragon breath when they're transformed, and a lot of the races can't actually cast spells while transformed. The Kitsune, however, do gain an ability that lets them cast the somatic components of spells with their tails, so they can cast spells while transformed. It's a special feature of that subrace. And then I listed a bunch of different names. I'm sure Fire Emblem fans will recognize a lot of these names. I took them right from the games. So now we get into the Lagoos traits. Now, the base racial traits, there's a few. Your constitution increases by 2, just gives you information on age, size is medium. They have a base walking speed of 30, they gain dark vision, they gain unarmored strikes that deal 1d4 bludgeon, that should be slashing damage, not bludgeoning. I don't know why I said bludgeoning. Probably because I copied this off of somewhere, off of the monk, and pasted it and didn't fix it. Let me go, where is that? Sometimes I copy the wording from the book, just so that it makes sense. The beast within. Now this is the big thing. As a bonus action, you may assume your bestial form, taking on a number of traits determined by your tribe. In this form, you maintain 3 of your ability scores determined by your tribe, your hit points, your skill proficiencies, and your saving throw proficiencies. You take on the rest of your stats from the matching creature in the monster manual, though you lose the multi-attack ability. You can retain this form for up to 1 hour, but must complete a long or short rest before you can use it again. If you fall to 0 hit points while in this form, you do not revert back to your humanoid form. Instead, you fall unconscious and must proceed to make death saving throws on your subsequent turns unless healed or stabilized. This is what makes this so different from the Druid Wild Shape. Because you keep your hit points, you do not get the hit points of the animal you turn into. So you could potentially be playing a wolf skin and be a fighter and have like 100 and something HP, and then turn into your wolf skin form and keep that HP rather than taking on the base wolf stats. Would the Warcaster let you get around casting Transformed? No. Because that's something that I took from the Wild Shape, and that you can't cast while transformed, because I feel that makes it a little too OP. But the main reason that I did the you don't drop your transformation is to kind of mitigate the fact that you keep your HP compared to Wild Shape, because like Wild Shape you take on the HP of what you turn into, and when you drop you just transform back. This is a very high risk, high reward scenario where you keep your HP, but you drop, you're unconscious. Because this is a part of who you are rather than your class. Where was I? Unless otherwise stated by your subrace, you cannot cast spells while transformed, but you can retain concentration. So you could cast a spell that requires concentration, like say Witch Bolt, and then transform, and you can maintain concentration on the spell. If you lose concentration, however, you can't cast a spell again unless you're no longer transformed. And then I gave them natural armor. When unarmored or shifted, your armor class equals 12 plus your dexterity modifier. So you can kind of mitigate your AC while transformed as well. Especially if you have high dex. And then languages. You can speak, read, and write Common and Sylvan. And while transformed, you can only speak in Sylvan, because I think that is hilarious. I playtested the Kitsune subrace in one of Mona's games, my character Hoshi, who had amnesia and brain damage and had an insanely high amount of deception. Like, she was fun. We were in a dungeon going after this prince who had been kidnapped, who went on to become Hoshi's husband. And they were captured by a hobgoblin and a group of goblins. And we ended up passing by this door, and we could hear chanting inside. And my brilliant ass decides, I'm gonna knock on the door. And the guy inside goes, "What? What do you want?" And she pipes up, "You're needed in the bakery." They don't understand the recipe. And I had to roll deception on that. And I managed to pass. And not only did this guy just leave to go to some random bakery, but I got a pet fairy dragon in the process. And we got to the end of this dungeon, and when the boss looks at us and goes, "Who are you people?" Hoshi's brilliant mind decides to go, "We're with the Union. You are in violation of 3 counts of the Goblin Labor Act. You must hand over your hostages, or you will be fined." And that worked too. From that day onward, our group began to be known as the Union, and it was great. That was such a fun campaign. I love Mona's games so much. I just love playing characters that can lie out of their ass and not have any repercussions. I have a character in Mel's game right now who also has high deception. So now we get into our subraces. Now there are a lot of subraces in Fire Emblem. I think I only left out one, because there's technically 2 wolf subraces. There's the wolves from Path of Radiance, and then there's the wolf skin from Fire Emblem Fates. And I decided to go with the wolf skin because I wanted there to be at least one subrace that was tanky. The final boss of that game ended up being a lich. and I got kidnapped, and I convinced the Lich I was on her side. So at the last moment when she thought I was going to fight my friends, I turned around and destroyed her phylactery. It was great. I love playing high deception characters. So the first subrace is the cat, probably one of the most common of the Lagoos. The cat folk retain long feline tails and slightly pointed cat ears in their humanoid forms. They gain a dex bonus. When they transform, they take on the form of a cat, which the stats for that is in the monster manual, or it's in the guide, the DM's guide, I can't remember which. And they keep their dex, their charisma, and their wisdom scores when they transform. While transformed, they gain advantage on acrobatics checks, and while transformed, they can use Pass Without Trace once per long rest. This is where it gets into the unless stated by your subclass, you can't cast spells. These are special abilities while they're transformed, and they can only use these once. The lion, often found at leading tribes of cats in their humanoid forms, the lion Lagoos have long, thin tails with tufts of fur at the end and rounded ears. They gain a strength bonus. When they're transformed, they keep their strength, constitution, and dex scores. They gain the ability Powerful Leader. While transformed, when you make a melee attack, you can choose to make your target make a strength saving throw, grappling them on a failed save. They also gain Booming Voice. As an action while transformed, you may give out a mighty roar at a creature who can hear you within 30 feet. The target must make a Wisdom saving throw or be frightened for 1 minute. The target can repeat the saving throw at the end of their turns until the effect ends. So lions are beefy, they can tackle you and hold you down, and they can intimidate you. Now, the tiger is one that I wrote recently. More offensive and defensive than cats, but that should say more offensive than defensive, not and. Let me fix that. And defensive compared to the cats. There we go. More offensive than defensive compared to cats, but slower. Tiger Lagoos maintain their long, thin tails, cat-like ears, and claw-like nails in their humanoid forms. They gain a constitution buff. When they transform, they keep their intelligence, con, and dex scores. They gain Quick Hunter. While transformed, if you move at least 20 feet straight toward a creature and then hit it with a pounce attack on the same turn. Pounce is one of the abilities you get from transforming into the tiger. That's one of the attacks that they have. The target must succeed on a DC 14 strength saving throw or be knocked prone. If the target is prone, you can make another pounce attack against it as a bonus action. And Quick as a Whip. While transformed, your speed increases by 10 feet. Because tigers are fast. They are faster than you think. And then we get into the bird Lagoos. We have the raven. Believed to be terrifying omens of death, raven Lagoos are often feared even by their fellow Lagoos. In their humanoid forms, they have large black wings. And this is where I get mad at my players every time we go into a place and they ask me, "Can I fly here?" So I had a player in my very first game that I DM'd who played a winged race, and we had a constant argument every time they were in a cave with low ceilings as to why he couldn't fly there. So, Izumi's character currently can fly. She's the one playing the Owlin. And they were in a dungeon. And it led to me setting up a thing that if she tried to fly out of the designated area of the dungeon, the magic would drag her back down. And she would take damage. This is a very annoyed DM who was tired of people trying to fly out of places. I let him fly, but there were just places where that wasn't feasible. If you're in a cave where the roof is right over right against the top of your head, You cannot fly there. You can maybe hover an inch or two, but you cannot fly there. Also, if you're in a cramped space where you're right up against the rest of your party, unfurling your wings is going to piss a couple people off. I talked about this player in one of Mona's DM discussion videos. This is the same person who got very upset at me because when he inadvertently attacked a child, the rest of the party got mad at him. He is the reason there is no child violence in my games anymore. Well, there wasn't before. Like, I warned him, like, you're going to hurt this child. And the fact that he did not care is the reason I very much adamantly point out there will be no on-screen child violence. If you want your character to have been tortured or beaten as a child, that's one thing. And, I will have, children get kidnapped and stuff for quest lines for people to have to go save them or whatever. But I will not let a player actively hurt a child in my games anymore because I didn't expect him at the time to be like, yeah, sure, that's fine, I don't care. A rational person wouldn't be like, I'm on this quest to go save these children and now I'm going to attack these monsters, which the spell that I'm using will get the children hurt. But I'm gonna do it anyway. I had a lot of issues with this player. I can rant about that player for days. Like, there was a lot of things that he did in game that I got very fed up with very quickly. But the Ravens get a charisma score increase. They gain flying. They can fly in their humanoid forms as well, of 30 feet. When they transform, they keep their charisma, wisdom, and intelligence scores. And while they're transformed, they gain advantage on intimidation checks. I was very happy with the name of this feature, Memento Mori, Remember Death. But I liked the idea of ravens scare people because they are omens of death. So raven lagoos are very intimidating. And then we have the hawk. Talented hunters and powerful warriors, the hawk lagoos retain large feathery wings in their humanoid forms. They retain their strengths, or they gain a strength boost. They also gain flying. While transformed, they keep strength, dex, and wisdom scores. And then they gain aerial ace, which gives them advantage on dex saving throws while transformed, because hawks are fast. And then we get into the herons. Good night, Tapeworm. I'll see you later. Thanks for stopping by. The herons are another one that I just recently... There we go. That's better. The main reason that I went with the charisma increase was, what's his name? In Path of Radiance, there's a Raven Lagoose, and I can't remember his name. It's the one that starts with N. He's the one in love with the Heron girl. Hana will know this off the top of his head. And he was very charismatic with her. I ship them so hard. But he's the reason I gave them the charisma boost. Now we get into the herons. Now the herons were a fairly rare, almost dying out Lagoos race in Fire Emblem. And so I wasn't sure if I was actually going to put them in my Lagoos write-up, but I decided I wanted to because I honestly think they make great healers. Herons, who retain large white wings in their humanoid forms, are in tune with the balance between chaos and order and have a pronounced ability to read the emotions of those around them. I gave them a wisdom score increase because I see a lot of people making clerics out of herons or other Healy races. They gain a flying speed of 30 feet. They keep their constitution, charisma, and wisdom scores. And they gain the ability Healing Feather. While transformed, you may cast the spell Cure Wounds once per long rest. So yeah, they're the Healy ones. Then we get into the Togwell. The Togwell are the rabbit folk from Awakening. This would be Pawn and Yarn, and Mona and I constantly argue over the pronunciation of those names. And my whole plan for the Togwell was they are fast and they want to run. So the Togwell, the rare of the Lagoose tribes, the Togwell appear to be the most beast-like of the Lagoose in their humanoid forms, having long rabbit ears, puffy tails, and tufts of fur at their necks, hips, and knees. Hey Snake, we are going over the Lagoose race that I wrote up. They get a dex score increase, and they actually get a speed increase of 35 feet. When transformed, they take on the form of a rabbit. There actually is not a rabbit write-up in the Monster Manual or the Dungeon Master Guide, so I actually had to write one up myself. And I will be putting it in at the end of the book for people to use. They keep their dex, their strength, and their constitution scores, and while transformed, they can cast Expeditious Retreat so that they can run away. You did not tell me that, Edwin, considering you only told me your last name for the first time like a week ago. And then we get into the wolf skin. The difference between a wolf skin and a werewolf is simple. Wolf skins who keep their canine ears and long, fluffy tails in their humanoid forms can choose when they transform. Werewolves cannot. I'm specifically talking about the werewolf monster, not the shifter race that came from 4th edition. I should really include the shifter race in my world because I know Mona wanted to play one. Or she had one for our Tyranny of Dragons game that was actually in Faerun. And if I ever go back and run that again, we're not running it in Faerun. Because I have realized that I didn't play 4th edition. So I know Faerun lore up until 3.5. And then I don't know anything after that. And I could go and read it up, but that's a lot of information for my tiny... It's easier for me to retain this stuff when I'm the one writing it. But the wolfskin gain a con bonus. While transformed, they keep their con, dex, and intelligence scores. They gain the ability Beastbane. While transformed, when you make a melee attack against creatures with the beast type, you may roll 1d4 and add the total to your damage total. I did just go over the Hawks and Herons snake. You can kind of see them on the side here if you want to read them over. And then we get into the Kitsune, which is the first sub-race I wrote, because I really wanted to play one. Believed to be blessed by Inari, and believed to be vain tricksters thanks to the deeds of Tamamo no Mae, Kitsune keep their fox ears and their tails in their humanoid form. They gain a charisma score increase. When they transform, they keep their charisma, intelligence, and wisdom scores. While transformed, they gain the ability to... While transformed, you produce a flame that damages your opponents. Pick a target you can see within 30 feet. The target must make a dexterity saving throw. On a failed save, the target takes 2d6 fire damage. On a successful save, they only take half. You may only use this ability twice before needing to complete a long rest. Yeah, the Kitsune were fun to make. And I really enjoyed playing Hoshi. They also get the ability Fey Magicians. While transformed, you can use your tail for the somatic parts of your spellcasting, allowing you to continue to cast spells while transformed. Moxie's just gonna playtest all of these races for me. And finally, we get into the Manikeet. The rarest of all Lagoos, their bloodlines have thinned over the ages. Manikeets look very similar to elves, with long pointed ears and a youthful appearance. They gain a wisdom increase, and while transformed, they take on the form of a... That should say Manikeet, not dragon. Because I actually had to write up... So the thing with them transforming into dragons is if I gave them like a regular dragon... they would wipe the floor with anything they fought at level 1. So I wrote up a custom Manakete that is a slightly edited young dragon, with edited abilities so that they aren't overpowered. But they retain their wisdom, constitution, and intelligence scores. They gain a flying speed of 50 feet, and they have... So, the way that I've run the mixing of races in my world is that a player can choose to take appearance from both races, but they can only take the stats of one. So if you were to mix a Togwell... So if you were to mix a Togwell and a Manakete, you could make yourself look like an elf-looking being with rabbit features, but you would only be able to take the features from the Togwell or the Manakete, not both. That's how I keep things balanced and fair. They gain Draconic Ancestry. Choose one type of dragon from the Draconic Ancestry table. Your breath weapon and damage resistance are determined by the dragon type as shown in the table. I actually have to go back and edit this because I did add... Oh, the music stopped. Let me go put on some new music. I'm using the same guy's stuff, but I'm going to pull up another one of his videos. Let's do this one. Have I played this one before? It's going to give me an ad. Go away. Thank you. There we go. Okay, there we go. Yes, I took a lot of my mixing of races rules from the newer Exandria campaign guide, because they have rules in that. I absolutely love the idea of mixing races. I love the idea of the world being less singular race. Because we have half-elves, we have half-orcs. Why not mix the your elf half with half of a gnome? And you can figure out what that looks like. I'm totally cool with that. And then they gain a breath weapon, which works the same way as the Dragonborn breath weapon, and it increases as they get higher leveled. Now we get to the thing that I've been working on for the past several days, the Gods and Faith section. Hey, there's a reason there's the saying, breeding like rabbits. Now the first stuff I'm gonna actually just kind of skip over, because this is just, the average. There are temples, there are priests, this is how they work, and a lot of this was taken straight from one of the other campaign books, just so that I had it there for people to reference. This is my very first pantheon. So the Arconian gods, their creation myth essentially goes into this idea that the Archon existed first, and then he created the first three gods, Valfor, Sakros, and Akron, and they created the world as we know it, and they created the first spark of life. And then the Archon introduced the first woman, Kalmira, who is the goddess of magic, to the world, and the three male gods all fell in love with her, and nobody wanted to share, so they fought over her, and they brought war to the world. And the Archon decided he wasn't having this, because they were destroying the thing that they built, so he took Kalmira and he split her into three beings, so that all three of the male gods could have a wife. And that's where we get Calmira, Islara, and Janessa. And from there, more gods were made. Some of them children of the first gods. And then we have a full pantheon. Eventually, the gods kind of butt heads. There was a point where after the first gods brought war to the world, the Archon decided... they decided they didn't want to share her, so the Archon had to split her. So they decided, so the Archon, after they brought war to the world, decided to separate the divine from mankind, and he essentially put up a barrier between the gods and the faithful, and eventually a group of the gods decided that they didn't like that they shouldn't be punished for the faults of their divine parents, and they decided they were just going to rip a hole in that barrier and go walk among people, and that caused another war between the gods, and some of them decided to remain neutral, and the war eventually ended, and the Betrayer faction, as they have been so hatefully named, were locked away in their own realms away from, so they could still answer the prayers of their faithful, but they couldn't interact with the other factions of gods. That's a very summarized version of my lore regarding these gods. It's a lot longer in my write-up, too long for this book. I essentially have told my players that if they want more information on the gods, whenever they make a character, they can come to me and I will give them further information. So, the Arconian Pantheon. When humans came to Telethra from Sneerheim during the Great Migration, they brought their gods with them. These gods, believed to have placed a barrier between the realm of men and the realm of the divine, represent a wide range of domains and provinces. While elves and dwarves have their own gods, many of the people of Telethra have adopted the Arconian faith. This is the most common faith of the people in Heedwile, and this is a big pantheon. I tried to give everybody a huge difference in domains so that they had somebody that fit what they wanted with their character. Then we get into, okay, this is where we get into a slightly controversial topic as to how specifically the kami of so I very much adopted the actual kami of Shinto religion. I wanted to show some respect and not change their names and not change like that creation myth. So they work a little differently in my world, but they're essentially the same kami that you would see worshipped in Shintoism in Japan. If I ever publish my world, this will change, but for now I'm just kind of leaving it as is. The people of Taiyo believe their kami created the world, much like those of Telethra believe the Archon created it. The major difference between the two is that the temples teach that the Archon and the rest of the gods have separated themselves from mankind. The people of Taiyo, however, believe that the kami walk among them, disguised as regular people. Thank you, Moxie. Kayla, you better lay your butt back down. Down. Kayla. Down. Hey. Don't make me come over there. Down. Sorry, had to discipline the dog. The way that the kami work in my head is that they don't really have clerics. First of all, because of the fact that they do walk among people, so they're not as separated, but also because they were formed a little differently. So the way that I see the kami is their followers would be closer to, if you want to go into Shintoism, the priests and Miko of Shintoism are closer to druids or celestial warlocks than they are to clerics. Now we get into one of the religions I only recently wrote. This one was a little hard for me. I wanted to make... So monotheism in general is really hard to do in D&D. Because you get into this thought process of these are worlds where magic is fairly widely accepted. Not only that, but polytheism is pretty rampant. Sorry, I'm losing my voice here. And a lot of what I was trying to come up with a good way to run it that was believable, but also wasn't like super out there. And it took me a little while, and I ended up coming up with the Church of the Sun Lord. Now, in Alsafat, the Church of the Sun reigns supreme, and worship is strictly policed. So this is a nation where they believe there is a singular God, and any other religion is heresy. Now, there are those in this nation that do believe the other pantheons are just, the gods of the other pantheons are just a different facet of their god, and they're more accepting. But for the most part in this country, you don't want to be caught worshiping anybody else. You don't want to talk about your religion if you're not from there, and you could potentially get arrested. So this religion is led by a holy exarch, Zahira, who is essentially inspired the foundation of the church and has led the people for thousands of years. And she has an order of holy knights that are immortal that follow her, and they are determined to bring the teachings to the rest of the world so that everybody will worship the Sun Lord. But most of the clerics of the Sun Lord find themselves as part of a saintly order, because I needed a way to bring in the different domains underneath a singular god. That's one of the main reasons why monotheism is so hard to work in D&D, because you have to have a way to, if somebody wants to be a cleric of this god, you can either give them, he only covers these domains, and then they're kind of locked regarding what kind of cleric they can make. But instead, I decided to do these saintly orders. These are orders of clerics and priests who are founded under a specific saint that teaches something specific under the Sun Lord. And a lot of the saint names that I took are real patron saints from Catholicism, because I am uncreative. No, I was raised Catholic. I will put that out there. I was raised Catholic. I was taught a lot about the patron saints. I have a patron saint. My patron saint is Saint Teresa the Little Flower. And I also I also have Saint Catherine for my confirmation name. And so I was taught all about, there's a lot of Christian religions out there too that don't believe the saints are a thing. And how you become a saint is extremely convoluted, because there has to be a miracle that's performed while they're alive. And then there has to be a second miracle performed in their name after they die. My confirmation name I actually chose because my grandmother was actually considered a secondhand relic, because she was touched on the head by St. Catherine Drexel. And the little boy from one of the miracles was in my mom's first grade class. So my family has weird ties to St. Catherine Drexel for some reason. Now we get into the elven gods. I had a lot of fun with creating the elven gods and their creation myth, because I wanted it to be so far removed from the Kami's creation myth and the Arconian creation myth. So compared to the Arconian that has the overgod, and the Kami faith where It's Izanagi and Izanami just kind of wandered the world that was already there and created the continents as we know them. The elves believe that their gods were originally just regular elves that suddenly had divine power. And they were just very powerful mages who could create people and the world and life. And the elves of Avalon, Anwin, and Umberland believe in the balance of nature, and the gods of their pantheon reflect that, broken up into groups called the Kalantar and the Halda. The Kalantar represent the light of the world, and the Halda represent the dark, though not necessarily evil of the world. So elves believe that their gods don't represent good and evil, they represent light and dark, and they balance each other out. It is also believed that a time of war caused a rift between members of the pantheon, which led to the creation of, that should say creation of, not creation, or I cannot type. Creation of Orkuva. So essentially, they fought against a demon from the abyss, and they won. But before he was cast back to the abyss, he damaged one of the members of the pantheon and essentially made him jealous and angry of the leader of the pantheon, and that led him to transforming into this angry, monstrous creature called Orkuva, who then went on to create the orcs. And the orcs and elves in this world very much dislike each other because of this myth, or because of this creation myth and the way it's told. And one of the reasons that I wrote it this way is there is a sub-race for orcs made by Pointy Hat, who is a YouTuber that I absolutely love, and I will shout out his channel because he's given me lots of inspiration for my world, where there is a sub-race of orc who remember the person that their god was before he was tainted, and they follow those beliefs and try to be nicer, better orcs, in a way. And I wanted to make that sub-race available to my players because I liked the idea of it, that there are people that remember who Orkuva was before he was Orkuva, and they feel that pull of him, of the parts of him that are still good, that are trying to redeem himself, kinda. And finally, we get into the Dwarven Pantheon. Now, I have names for the Dwarven gods. I have what domains they represent. I have their holy symbols. I have a base idea of how they came about, but that's about it. This is something I have to expand on in the future. But we get into the Stone Lords. The dwarves believe they were forged from stone of the earth by the very hands of the All-Mother Calatir, who created the first 6 dwarves, called the Storm Lords, and from them came the rest of her people. Dwarves believe that they come from the stone, and when they die to the stone, they will return. Yes, I've been playing a lot of Dragon Age. There is very much Dragon Age influence in there. While today their gods are far removed from the people, sleeping within the stone with which they created the race of dwarves, the dwarves believe their gods will return when time and necessity call for it. In the meantime, the people learn from the teachings of their deities and put those teachings to practice within their everyday lives. So the Elven Pantheon is large, but not as large as the Arconian Pantheon. It's about half. And then the Dwarven Pantheon is very small. I wanted a nice contrast between a large pantheon, a medium-sized pantheon, and then a very small pantheon. And then finally we get into what I've been working on for the past day or so, which is the nations. Now, some of my nations and realms are very well thought out, and I have a lot of information on them. I have a lot of stuff in my head for them. And then we get into stuff like Alsafat, which I had, before writing this, absolutely nothing. I just knew that it was a deserty, tropical region somewhere in the world that was a separate continent from where the players currently are. And that it was ruled by a bunch of merchant princes. And that was all I had. I knew that I wanted to do a monotheistic religion there, and that was about it. That's all I knew. So now I have at least a little bit of flavor text to kind of lead into how I want to run this area if the players go there, what they should be wary of. So, Al-Safat is made of both a large desert region as well as a dense rainforest to the south of the continent. This region is known for its harsh weather conditions and the threat of both sandstorms and tropical storms. So, you're either going to get sand in your face or you're going to get blown away by a hurricane. It's great. I don't know if that's like geographically sound. Why do I keep saying geology is rocks? I don't pretend to know a lot about how continents are formed. I try to be, at least in the practice that I've done with maps, a little realistic in how rivers flow and are formed, but I try not to overthink it, because in the end these are worlds of magic, and magic can do weird shit to a continent. So, trade and religion. In the desert city-states of Al-Safat, trade and religion reign supreme. Rather than a singular king or president, the different cities that span the sundering desert are ruled by the most wealthy merchants who make up a group called the Syndicate. These merchant princes bring in both trade and wealth to their cities, but they are constantly at rivalry with one another, hoping to outdo the other just to gain the upper hand on trade in the region. The only power higher than that of the Syndicate is the Church of the Sun Lord, led by the Holy Exarch. Considered to be a prophet of the one true God, even the Syndicate looks to her guidance in all things and would never dare to cross the church. Religion is strictly policed in Al-Safat, and worship of any god other than the Sun Lord is considered heretical. The punishment for such an offense is burning at the stake. The savage jungle. It is said the jungle regions of Al-Safat are wrought with danger, and only the skilled hunters of the Vieira tribes can find their way through without threat of death at every turn. Far removed from the civilized lands that put power in the hands of traders and merchants, those who live in the rainforest believe that it is kill or be killed, and the only thing you can rely on is your own intuition. So this is supposed to be the holy symbol of the Sun Lord, and I pulled this off of Google Images, and it is a placeholder until I can commission someone to draw me, or draw myself, something better. I just needed something to fill that space and to sit there. A lot of the images that are in the book right now, aside from the Lagoo stuff, because that's taken right from Fire Emblem, are placeholders. Or they're just AI pictures that I yanked off the internet, because that's a conversation we can have all day about how I feel about AI quote-unquote art. Then we get into Anwen. Now, if I had a map, it'd be easier for me to show you where these places are, but I haven't even started the map yet. Anwen is the forest home of the Wood Elves in the southern part of Telethra. While generally welcoming to outsiders, the Elves of Anwen do prefer to keep the location of their nation's capital, which is hidden by powerful mages, a secret. Any trade or travel is done, I can't fucking type, is done through the other cities in this area. Anwen was founded after the Wood Elves left Avalon during the Shattered War. Hello, Enqui, welcome to the show! We have just gotten to the end of what I have of the document. OBS disconnected. Oh no. Okay. OBS kind of broke for a second there. I don't know if it affected stream, but hopefully it fixed itself. And, somebody's texting me. Oh. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna chalk that up to this being a new computer. um Anyway, I'll just start that section again. Healers of the land. During the Age of Magic, much of the land was scarred by the magic used in war. The Wood Elves of Anwen have made it their personal goal to heal the land of its scars. Their white mages are known for being powerful mages in their own right and use that magic for the sake of nature. Each Wood Elf in Anwen is often soul bonded to a bond bird, an avian of their choosing that serves as their eyes in the sky, a magical conduit, and a piece of their soul. The hunters of their people are known for choosing birds of prey, while the mages choose birds of any type. So I will be very honest. I take a lot of inspiration from existing media. And there is a book series called The Heralds of Valdemar by Mercedes Lackey that I have been obsessed with since I was very young. Am I cutting in and out? That's so weird. Let me restart OBS. I'll be right back. Okay. Hopefully that's better. Let me know if you guys can hear me any better. I don't know if you guys can hear me anymore. Hello? I'm not here. Okay, we're good. There's a bit of a lag though, but we can... Okay, I will reread this section one more time. Healers of the land. During the Age of Magic, much of the land was scarred by the magic used in war. The quiet's probably the lag. There's a bit of a lag between me speaking and you guys seeing or hearing what I'm saying. I think that's just how my internet is, that there's like a minute or so delay. Anyway. During the Age of Magic, much of the land was scarred by the magic used in war. The Wood Elves of Anwen have made it their personal goal to heal the land of its scars. Their white mages are known for being powerful mages in their own right and use that magic for the sake of nature. Each Wood Elf in Anwen is often soul bonded to a bond bird, an avian of their choosing that serves as their eyes in the sky, a magical conduit, and a piece of their soul. The hunters of their people are known for choosing birds of prey, while the mages choose birds of any type. So I will be very honest, I take a lot of ideas from existing media, and Anwen's entire culture is based on a group of people from a book series that I grew up reading called the Heralds of Valdemar series. If you're into high fantasy, I highly recommend it. All of the stories are broken up into like books of 3 that focus on a singular character in the world at that time. Some of them bleed into each other, like everything from Carowin's book on kind of goes back into Talia's book and covers a lot of the stuff that happens towards the end of the series. I think the first book books out of the series that I read were the Last Herald Mage, which is the 3 books that follow the character named Vaniel. And in that book, you're introduced to the Taladris, which is where I took a lot of inspiration for the culture of my world, or of the Wood Elves in Onwin. And that's mainly to pay homage to Mercedes Lackey for being the one who inspired me to get into writing and world building and stuff like that. I don't think that author will ever see this. One can only hope. But if you're out there, Misty Lackey, I absolutely love your books. Anyway, another thing that I've included in my world, and my players know this, and it's kind of a giant joke, sort of, is there's actually a character in my world based off of Matt Mercer. Her name is Madam Mercer. She runs a store. If you're familiar with Critical Role at all, and if you're familiar with, specifically, Gilmore as a character, she is the Gilmore of my world. She's a little more business oriented in, I wouldn't say she's less friendly, but she's not exactly Gilmore's personality. She just serves as the main source of magic items in my world. There's a joke that she may or may not have killed her husband. It's one of the things I want to tell Matt Mercer if I ever meet him. But I like putting little homages to either previous characters that friends have played, or books and other things that have shaped me as a person, like Critical Role, Matt Mercer. Matt Mercer specifically is the reason that I started DMing. Because his world building... she is human. She's an extremely powerful mage. And, there's another character who runs a magic shop who is her rival. And the party is currently leaning toward the rival a bit more. Because she's a little different in that she won't sell you she won't sell you what you want, she'll sell you what you need. And that is Amethyst's entire shtick. She's fun. Amethyst is a fun character to roleplay. She may or may not have some ties to one of Mona's characters by accident. So that's fun. But I just like referencing stuff that has inspired me. I grew up on D&D. I was playing when I was 5. My mom let me roll her dice during her game with her group, and sometimes I'd say nonsensical things that they would blame on the griffin. My mom's character had a pet griffin. And she ran games for me and my friends growing up. And I mean, I played a lot of 3rd edition and 3.5 growing up. I played the Baldur's Gate games growing up, played the Neverwinter Nights games, Icewind Dale, all of those. I have been obsessed with tabletop gaming for a very long time, and I never tried my hand at DMing until after watching Critical Role's first campaign. And my first campaign was in Taldore, and I ran it like the players... I had a lot of new players at that point, and I was trying to teach my players to differentiate between... Okay, Eric, thanks for stopping by! I was trying to teach my players to differentiate between when they were talking out of character and when they were talking in character. And for the characters that were doing voices for their characters, that was easy to tell. But for characters that were just doing their normal voice, it was hard to tell at times. So I ran my Critical Role game as a MMO. They were playing an MMORPG. It was a VR Sword Art Online game kind of deal. They weren't stuck in the game, but they could. But the way that the game was programmed was that when they made their characters, they inputted NPCs tied to their characters, and the world created the game created those characters, and the world shaped around their choices. So it was an ever-changing MMORPG where the world was where there was an algorithm that made the world change around them. It was really convoluted, but for a first game, it worked out really well. There was this whole thing that I was joking about that in the first Critical Role campaign, they find one of the horns of Orcus and they take it to Vasselheim, where it's locked away. But during that entire first campaign, they never go back to the whole plot line of there's a whole other horn that hasn't been located. So I used that as the driving plot for my Tal'Dorei game, and in the end, the players fought Orcus, and I have this beautiful, giant... I don't even want to call it a mini, because it is the size of a Barbie, and it is huge compared to regular minis. And when I put it on the map, this is back when I was playing with physical pieces, when I put it on the map, everybody freaked out, and it was wonderful. I'm so proud of that game. But now we're at the point where we can actually continue writing. But while I'm writing, you guys can ask questions or, give your thoughts on the stuff that I've shared so far. My dog will not settle down. Kayla, you need to get in your bed and you need to lay down, or Daddy's going to come down here and then you're going to be in trouble. I am starting to lose my voice though a little bit, so the last time I played D&D in person was, oh god, when was it? I think it was probably not this past summer, but the summer before, like sometime before my surgery. Izumi and her fiance came up, and we had a couple local friends come over, and I ran a one-shot, and everybody played monks, and it was hilarious. I don't get to play in person very often, which sucks, because I do have a lot of minis, I have physical maps, and I love to run games in person, because when I run them in person, I will try to do physical puzzles. This game that I ran while they were there, I had one of those, I don't remember what it's called. It's the cylindrical letter puzzle from the Da Vinci Code. I had one of those. I had a box that, like, you had to squeeze the sides in a specific way to slide it open. I had, like, letters that I wrote out. And then there was, like, hidden in invisible ink thieves' cant notes that they had like a black light that they had to use to retrieve the lettering, and then they had to translate the thieves' cant. It was great. I had way too much fun with that. I think it's called a cipher case. I don't remember. It's essentially the thing from the Da Vinci Code. It's also very heavy. It's a lot heavier than it looks. And then, so that had, I like having the visuals there, so that, especially with the online version, when I do in person, I do Theater of the Mind, and then I only use minis for combat. But when I do Roll20, I like having an easier idea of placement of NPCs, so that my players, know where people are in retrospect to them. And it's a lot easier for them to be like, that person looks cool, I want to go talk to them, especially when they're at this magic school with 50 other students. More than that at this point. I think there's a lot more than that. Planning out my first campaign as a DM myself, working out an overhaul of 5e so that I can use D&D for a setting I built. That's really cool, Spuds. I've been, with everything that's been going on with Wizards of the Coast and Cryptex, that's the word. With everything that's been going on with Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro, I'm very, very close to pulling away from 5e entirely, and I certainly don't like a lot of the changes that they've made to the game with the recent book. So I'm kind of hoping that when Daggerheart is released, that I might switch to that. If anything, I might just go back to 3rd edition. That's what I grew up playing. I don't know. There's a lot of issues with Wizards of the Coast that I could really get into, but that will make me very angry. And there's only 20 minutes left of stream, and I don't want to get into a rant. I'm sure Mona and I have, on her show, gotten into that rant enough. Shout out to Mona of Lucis. Go check out her channel. We have done a couple episodes of her show, DN Discussion, where we read horror stories off RPG horror stories, and we react to them, and we talk about Yes, Eric, I was talking about the fact that I grew up on 3rd edition. That's what my mom ran games in for us when I was growing up. I was also talking about how I'm very close to pulling away from 5th and pulling away from D&D in general. Especially recently, because I believe Hasbro just let go their, like, social media consult, so, like, I've been meaning to get into Pathfinder. I played 1 or 2 games of Pathfinder, and I liked it, at least what I remember of it. And I think it would also be a lot easier to convert a lot of the stuff that I've written, especially, like, my custom race, over to Pathfinder. I'd probably have to change up some wording and some of the abilities, but it would still probably work. Speaking of Pathfinder, I actually have the Pathfinder PC game, Kingmaker. I thought about playing that on stream at some point. Now that I have the new computer and hopefully don't have to worry about things breaking. I know I had a hiccup earlier, and I hope that doesn't mean... Yo, Eric, I will be happy to play in any game you run. I just like playing. My younger sibling is currently running a game of Kids on Bikes, which is, like, very, I guess you could compare it to Stranger Things in that it's, like, small town kids running into supernatural or not so new supernatural problems. And that's been fun. I'm playing a rebel kid that used to be very devout and church-going, and her brother died in an accident, and now she hates the world and everybody in it. But D&D has been, you know, the one thing that I grew up with, that I played with my family constantly. So it's a little heartbreaking to want to pull away from it, but considering the way things have been with Wizards, it's the main reason I've been absolutely afraid to go back to running a campaign on this channel. We did run a game 4 or 5 years ago in this world. That's how this world got started. Well, it's how the D&D version of this world got started, I should say. And it was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed running it, and we had quite a bit of viewers for that, but I would be absolutely terrified of anything Wizards might do if we tried to stream, especially because we're a small channel. I will not, as much as I would love to put my campaign setting out for the world, I'd be absolutely terrified of anything Wizards would do. I'm very protective of this stuff, and, like, I don't want to try to make money because of what Wizards tried to do with the OGL and all the other shit that they've been doing. It's hard to support a company like that. With all the changes that they've made and the way that they've been handling things, it's hard to support that. They just recently let go of their social media consultant person, that, you know, the person that would be working with the YouTubers and the streamers and everything, and it feels like they're alienating the entire community. It just feels like they don't care about the players anymore. And that's sad. It's very sad, considering, you know, this started as a small game where the only classes were, like, I think it started out with Fighter, Thief, and Mage were the only classes when the game started. My history might be wrong, but, you know, it started out as this small little thing in somebody's garage and turned into, you know, capitalism. And that sucks. It really does. But I said I didn't want to rant, and I ended up ranting anyway. But I do want to encourage, like, the groups that do, and not just the big groups that do streaming, like, there's been a couple small D&D groups that I've come across on YouTube that I want to support. You know, with Daggerheart coming out, I'm hoping, you know, I played around with the beta, and it looked really good. I'm a little tentative about their card system, because it just feels like the cards are there to be pretty cards, and it's all information you could just put in a character sheet. I'm hoping that they're going to put out some stuff where, like, the DM can turn around and be like, okay, here's a ability that lets me take a card out of play for a turn or whatever. I don't know. I haven't been keeping up with the recent changes, and I know they just finished the beta, and the book's supposed to be coming out next year, so we'll see how things go. I just backed a tabletop RPG that is very Sailor Moon inspired. I think it's supposed to be that they took the Sailor Moon TTRPG from the 90s and have updated it and updated the system. Because I still have the books for the game that came out in the 90s. And that might be fun to run on the channel, because I'm obsessed with Sailor Moon. Though I'm sure a lot of you saw our Sailor Moon stream not that long ago, and we're planning on playing more of that, by the way, at some point in the future. But I would be totally cool running Daggerheart on the channel, and I'd be totally cool running that game on the channel, or Pathfinder. I need to get the books for Pathfinder and start reading. But I really hope you guys enjoyed this stream, and we're getting close to the end here. I hope you guys enjoyed what I've shared about my world. I'm definitely going to do one of these streams again in the future. When I start working on the map, I'll probably do a stream of that. And then I'll probably do another one of these streams as I get further into this book and share everything else that I've done. And I just love talking about my world. I absolutely love sharing all this information, because it's stuff that I only get to really share with my players through exposition in-game. I don't want to be that DM that lore dumps in-game all the time. But when, you know, my players enjoy the history and the lore of my world, I get really excited. There's been a couple of moments where there's a character in the current game, in my current Monday game, who is related to a character from the stream that we did. And the moment Izumi realized formatting information, OneNote is your best friend. This home brewery guide thing is all marked down, so it's a little hard to figure out. Homebrewery.naturalcrit.com is a great place to make, like, almost professional looking stuff for your players. And it has plenty of templates. It takes a little bit of finagling to figure out, but a good thing for keeping track of your notes, especially as a DM, is OneNote. I do all of my session planning in OneNote. I have all of my world information in OneNote. It's a little messy, which is why I'm doing this player's guide for my players, so I can kind of give this to them so that they have general information on the world. But OneNote is such a good place for keeping track of all your stuff, because you can link things to each other. If you want like a website like World Anvil that's really good, there's Legend Keeper. It is a subscription if you want to be able to share it with your players, but the thing I like about Legend Keeper is that you can format it so that you can share it like a wiki with your players, and you can control what the players can and can't see. So you could keep all your world information on there, and you could format it so that they can only see so that when you share it with your players, they can only see certain parts of it. I've been meaning to play around with Legend Keeper. Maybe in the next few months, if I can afford the membership, I might do another stream like this of copying all my world information into that and playing around with it. For making maps, I use Dungeon Draft for my in-game maps, like my battle maps. And then I get my assets from somebody on Patreon called Forgotten Adventures. For world maps, I use Incarnate, and I'm still getting used to that program. That website's a bit to work with, and they do have like free tiers. I have what's left of this year's subscription, and then I'm probably not going to be paying for it anymore just because money's tight. We have a wedding to go to next summer. Trying to think of other things. My biggest advice as a DM: do not be afraid to use existing material. I am running currently a reskinned Strixhaven campaign, and I am filling a lot of the adventure with stuff from that, with Tales from the Radiant Citadel, with Candlekeep Mysteries, and I also have this nifty little book that I just bought called One Shot Wonders, that has a lot of pre-written one-shots that you can just that don't take a lot of prep, that you can just, I'm not sponsored by the way, that you can just kind of throw into your games. Don't be afraid to use existing material if you need side quests. If you feel like your plot is moving too fast and you need to fill in space and you aren't sure what or how or when or where to do it, don't be afraid to use supplementary material. DM's Guild is a great place to find little one-shots that you can just throw into your game when you need to fill in space. And honestly, for world building stuff, there's a couple books that I suggest. There's a book out there called Spectacular Settlements, which is really good for learning how to write towns and cities and stuff like that. And if you are looking for YouTubers to watch that can go over world building and teach you really good ways to do that, Icarus Games is a really good channel. I got a lot of info from them. He is the reason that I started this player's guide. It was inspired by the one that he made for his players. And the other thing that I can kind of give you is, don't be afraid to write down prepared dialogue for NPCs, especially if you're trying to set up like the information that's being given to players on a quest. I do that all the time, and I will change it up depending on what's been asked or what's already been given. It's mainly there as a guide, just so that I have something prepared, so I'm not sitting there going, because I do that a lot. See? Just did it. But I hope that helps, and I really hope that you guys will come to one of these streams again in the future. I don't know yet what I'm playing next weekend. I do have to do some replaying of Fire Emblem because my save didn't copy over to the new computer, so I have to replay to where Mona and I are currently at for Sim Sisters. So I'm gonna take care of that before I figure out what the hell I'm doing next week. But I hope y'all come back and join me for another Kage Is Bored next week. There is an update to Fields of Mystria, so maybe I'll play some more of that. Maybe I'll play some Sims, because there's a new pack out. I've been wanting to start a legacy challenge on this channel. Maybe I'll work on mine and Mona's save file that we started, and we can do that on the channel and have some fun just making Sims and building. I'll figure it out. But in the meantime, thank you all for coming. Oh, thank you, Daniel. Mona drew my sprite, and I love her hair too. I actually, in real life, used to have hair like this. Not so much anymore. I've grown it out and it's dark, but... Alright, everybody. That is it for tonight. Thank you all for stopping by. I will see you all next time. Mata ne!